welcome to another episode of basically a talkie on the Bearfoot Miniatures channel, and today we're going to be going over the Thousand Suns, and I think this is actually the final Space Marine Legion that we're going to do a rundown of before going into the more minutiae details of the Heresy stuff. So the Thousand Suns, they are the Psychic Legion basically. They're in the Heresy for all of 5 minutes at the start and then play quite a large role at the end as the forces get to Terra. Obviously they're in bits all through the middle, appearing. Anyone that was away from Prospero when the wolves attacked, which was quite a few according to book 7, are obviously about in the universe and fighting in the Age of Darkness. So as a general thing to say about Thousand Suns, I just don't think they're in the best of positions at the moment. They're like Salamanders level World Eaters, I'd say a bottom half, but then yeah, they're just not in the greatest of positions. Now, that's not to say that I think they're completely unplayable or anything like that. I think they're more like orcs of the normal 40k and fantasy games, in that they could actually be really, really powerful if you can pass psychic checks. And that's one of the things that's through this section, is that your actual Legion trait, which we'll get to in a second, could be incredibly good if you can rely on yourself to pass Leadership 8 tests. If you can't do that, they're going to be terrible. And it's going to be really swingy, I think, in that you can't rely on your Legion Astartes trait all the time. Now, let's go over that, I suppose, since I'm alluding to it quite a bit. So, Occult Arcana, all infantry and cavalry subtypes, but not artillery, automated artillery subtypes, with this special rule, gains Psyker subtype. It doesn't grant a discipline or anything like that, so everyone has Psyker. In addition, all models with infantry, cavalry and character must select one minor arcana option, which is across the page. Any model with independent character that does not already have a psychic discipline may be upgraded for plus 15 points to gain a single psychic discipline from the core psychic discipline list. So, on the face of it, really good. Now, the massive benefit of that, I think, like the real big benefit, is that your independent characters are going to have either be a Praetor and a Psyker, or you're going to be a Consul that's also a Librarian. And I think that is actually a really strong combination. It means you've not got to take choose between a Librarian and Master of Signals. It's one choice. Boom, done. Now that is actually a real good unlocker of that sort of console choices, because in Heresy 2, at least in my experience, there's near never a time when you don't want Librarians. They're just really good. Like Heralds, some like Chris and James are screaming now, saying like Heralds are the best. I'd say, well, you can have a Herald Librarian if you're playing Thousand Suns, and I do think that is absolutely incredible. Now, moving down one step, you've got your character subtypes. They get a minor arcana. Now, we'll go over in a second what those are, but that, as I said before, in a very quick way, can be incredibly powerful. I think they are very good, the minor arcana. However, it's only that character. So this makes Thousand Suns actually really vulnerable to sniper type weapons, precision shots, things like that are absolutely prolific in Heresy 2. Like, every battle you go into pretty much is going to have a Recon sniper squad. And when they start pinging off your sergeants, you're going to basically lose your Legion trait, because for your infantry and cavalry, just normal types, them gaining Psyker is actually usually a downside, because all it really adds is a weakness for weapons that work against Psykers. Now, there is the way to get around that, which is you put apothecaries in your squads, tech marines in your squads, and that will increase the amount of characters in there that it can then cast psychic powers. So as a general note on Thousand Sons, I would always recommend putting an apothecary mostly into your squads, and if it's a shooting squad, a tech marine as well, or instead of the apothecary. It does start to mount up in expense of your squads though, so that although you're gaining the additional benefits of those tech marines and apothecaries, that is just one thing that I would say, but I definitely recommend putting those characters in there. So basically your Legion rule can't be taken away as easily as everyone else. Now you also get the Prospering Arsenal, but we'll get into that in a second because that's the Armoury. And we'll go on to the Arcana before your advanced reaction, because that is the Legion rule really. So you get Raptora. Now, when a unit that includes a Psyker makes a move or a run and ends within 12 inches of an enemy unit, make a Psychic check for the Psyker before any models are moved. So it's before you know whether your opponent is reacting. If it's successful, gain a 6+ invulnerable or increase that invulnerable by 1 to a maximum of 4+. If it's failed, Perils of the Warp, so D3 wounds to the squad. And I think that's a really good power. I think it stacks up nicely with, really nicely with Breachers, Tartarus Terminators, which can be running up the board and just as strong as Cataphracti. Now, it doesn't protect you massively from shooting, and you've got to be up the board. So first turn, when a lot of damage is likely to be coming in, you're not getting that increased invulnerable. It is going to be helping you in combat, but it's only going to be helping you on basically on a turn where you've not been locked in combat previously, because you can't move when you're already in combat. So if you get into a prolonged combat, you can't actually use your psychic power that turn because you're not being selected to make a move or a run. But then again, an increased invulnerable I think is very good. As I say again, Breachers and Tartarus Terminators. No massive downside extra to that. I quite like it. It's helping you in combat. Really, you want to run through combats. I suppose there is a massive downside, but I still like that as one of the powers. Pyre. When you nominate a unit to make a charge, take a psychic check. If successful, all models in the charging unit with Psycho subtype and Thousand Sons gain Hammer of Wrath 2 special rule. And all attacks from that Hammer of Wrath counts as flaming. If failed, Perils of the Warp. This will stack nicely with jump pack squads where you're going to be making the charge all the time. Anything that's charging, really. But how it's really going to come in is your jump pack squads that are going to be consistently making charges. Obviously, your Terminator squads and stuff, but really how your Terminator squads will be working is getting those AP2 hits or doubling people out, taking on units that usually you need to crack with higher AP or higher strength, and these additional strength 4 hits aren't going to matter that much. Whereas if you look at, say, a Despoiler or Assault squad, you're going to be getting 1 for your actual base attacks, charging, 2 close combat weapons, and suddenly you have these 2 Hammer of Wraths. So it actually puts you on a massive number of attacks of 5 per model. Plus, if you've assassinated the character in someone else's squad from a Despoiler squad, you're going to get another one for that. So it puts your Despoiler squads up to 6 at strength 4, which is very good. Like, your Hammer of Wrath is an auto hit, so it's not getting that initial to hit roll, cutting half of everything out. So I think it's a very good power when used against squishier squads. Use it in your assault squads, as I say. Anything that's going to be taking on sort of like medium units. Everything against the Solar Army. Now, this is one of the ones that you could, if you've not got with your initial unit, you could have on your apothecary, and then that gives it to the entire squad. So you could gain, say, Pavoni, which we'll go to in a second, on your main squad, and which you might want to keep around a bit more, or maybe you don't want, maybe your sergeant just dies first, so you give that the rubbish one. But whichever, you're going to put one on one, and your apothecary gives you another one. Pavoni, when a unit, including a psyker, blah blah blah, when they're moved, if successful, add +3 to the distance moved and ignores all penalties to movement, moving through difficult terrain. If failed, suffer perils of the warp. Now this is incredibly good. It's like 3 of the White Scars buff, but you've just got to back yourself to pass that leadership check for the psychic check. I think this is I do think this is one of the key ones. Well, they're all key. They're all great. I don't know why I'm about to start ranking them, but I'm just such naturally a ranker of things now that we've done that Heresy Legions ranking. But +3 to distance moved. It's not going to add to your charge distance in the charge phase. It's just for that move, but you're going to get it. You're going to get 3 inches taken off your charge move essentially. I think it's really good. Obviously, moving faster is better. Corvidae, psychic check, or perils. If the check is successful, the first wound scored on a target unit by a shooting attack is allocated by the psyker's controlling player. But once this model's been removed as a casualty, all further wounds are allocated as normal. Now, this is incredibly good. It's actually really good when you put it on. You can put it on a las cannon squad, like say a 5-man las cannon squad, that is now just your Iron Havoc squad essentially, because Iron Havoc's precision shot on 6s. This is an auto one, so you know you're definitely going to get it, and you can just chance your arm blasting at people and picking out their Praetor. And anyone but an Iron Hands Praetor is going to have a 50-50 chance to live, basically, which is really, really scary. It can also help out your recon squads by just adding that additional precision shot every single turn that you know is going to happen, just relentlessly. It's basically good just on any squad. This is one of the default go-tos for even just a tactical squad, because it's just always worthwhile getting a precision strike sort of thing on your opponent if you possibly can. Athenaean, when a unit including a psyker, blah blah blah, successful test, back yourself being successful. The enemy unit targeted by the shooting attack must reduce leadership characteristic by 1 for pinning or morale caused by the shooting attack. If failed, perils of the warp. Now this is I think very good as well, but in more specific circumstances. Now you're gonna want this on things that cause pinning, like your snipers. I suppose here, it's a toss-up between this and Corvidae. Now, if you've got an apothecary, you give them both, because of course you want both. Because getting that additional Corvidae precision strike is good. Athenaean, -1 leadership, you essentially gain Shell Shock 1. If you already have Shell Shock 1 from, say, a support squad with rotor cannons, they're now at -2. And if it's nighttime, they're -3. So you were as scary as Night Lords in fear range, which is incredibly good. Again, if you can pass a leadership 8 check. And it's going to always come back to that, because as soon as you start failing checks, you're going to start taking damage. And it's going to eat into your units. Like across the game, if you have 7 or 8 units that are all Thousand Suns, it will start eating into them. And it's one of the downfalls of the army. All of those are really, really good. Really, there's not one that I don't look at and go, wow, that is amazing. But leadership 8 isn't that great, as I think we're all discovering in Heresy 2. It's just not reliable enough. I think it's a good change for the game. I don't think it's reliable enough to be basing an entire Legion's mechanic around. So on to the Thousand Suns advanced reaction. It's the Fortress of the Mind. When you get a shooting attack declared at you, take a psychic check. Another psychic check, right? So I know leadership checks are key to psychic tests. I know psychic tests are key to Thousand Suns, but I think it's just a bit too punishing on Thousand Suns to have all of these leadership checks required. Now, a 3-up invulnerable is good as an invulnerable. It's not an out of sequence reaction. I would argue potentially that being in cover and having like just a basic evade, it's a 5-up for being in ruins and then a 5-up from evade. 33 and then 33 is like getting on for similar to a 3-up invulnerable, in which that doesn't require a psychic check. So he's almost, if you're in ruins or you are a Terminator with a 5-up invulnerable anyway, you're getting on for near about the same chance of success if you just use evade. So it starts to like chip away at how good that advanced reaction actually is. It's good if you're out in the open and you've not got an invulnerable. So it is situationally good, but it's not always going to happen. It's always going to give you a 5-up invulnerable, but the guaranteed getting of evade just sort of makes me want to say that's better. So I'm gonna. So on to the Thousand Sons Warlord traits. Now you've got Evoker of Pain, and this is one of the better ones. This is one of the better ones. They're all good. So this is traitor only, and it's, as I say, they're all good. It starts to claw back a little bit of claw back Thousand Sons into the running a little bit. So you get, basically, when you fail a psychic check, neither the Warlord or model suffer any wounds. Instead, select an enemy unit that's got at least one model within 6. That selected enemy unit basically suffers the perils of the warp. If there's no valid enemy units within 6, resolve it against the Warlord unit as normal. Now, you're going to have enemy units within 6 quite a lot, because your Warlord, he's probably going to be rocking a Thunderhammer, and he's probably going to be in combat quite a lot, because we know Warlords quite like to rock Thunderhammers and quite like to be in combat at the moment. So it's good. It's quite good. It's doing damage to your opponent if you fail that psychic check, which you sometimes will, though you're going to be leadership 10 because he's your Warlord. It affects your Warlord unit as well, which is good. So it's buffing not just the Warlord. You get an additional reaction in the assault phase. Now that's situationally good. I wouldn't say Thousand Sons particularly favour one phase or the other, but quite often if that's the case, you're going to be wanting either shooting or assault based off your opponent's army rather than your own army. So the jury's out for that one. Magister of Prospero, basically you get cold-blooded, which is roll 3d6 and discard the highest when you're doing psychic checks with your Warlord. Now, I said Evoker of Pain is one of the better ones. No, I prefer the other two. But so this is going to get your tests more reliable. And that is good, except, and it's for your Warlord unit as well. Your Warlord's already leadership 10, so how often you're going to actually fail that check for that Warlord, it's going to happen, right? Because you're going to take it quite a lot, is what I'm going to say there. It's not earth-shattering, but it makes you more reliable in an army that suffers from problems with being unreliable. So I would recommend to take it. Eidolon of Suffering. Now, strangely, right, this is one of the better ones. Why do I keep going to that phrase? So basically, you can't cast psychic powers with your Warlord. And can you cast them with the unit? No, it's just the Warlord can't cast them. You gain Adamantium Will 3+, so any attacks that damage your Warlord's unit, not turning off reactions though. What's that one called on telepathy? I should know this on the Psychic Powers one. I know what it does, though. On divination. Right, anyway. So, basically, you get Adamantium Will 3+, and when another model-friendly enemy takes a Psychic check within 12 of the Warlord, roll a d6. On a 1, no effect. On a 2 or higher, gain Rage 2 for the remainder of the battle. If the trait would grant the Warlord Rage 2 a further time, increase the Rage by 1 to a maximum of 4. That's really good. That's really good, right? In addition, an army whose Warlord has this trait, additional reaction in the shooting phase, so long as he's not dead. Now, shooting phase, good, because you can evade in that, take less damage, that's always good. Like, there's no real downside to that. Getting Rage up to Rage 4, if you have your Warlord in, I don't know, say, an assault squad where he's moving really fast, or on a jet bike, or something like that, you're going to be getting that charge, because say your Warlord is Pavoni, where he moves +3. You're now the fastest model in the game on your jet bike. You can have Rage 4, and I know you can't not casting any other powers with this, like you miss out on a Librarian slot, but having 4 attacks from a Praetor, 1 for charging, plus another 3 from the, that's a bad way of saying that, 4 attacks as a Praetor and 4 for charging. You can also take a Paragon Blade and a Thunderhammer for 9 attacks, and that is really, really scary when they're doubling out your opponent and doing Brutal 2. And I think that is one of the ways that I'd recommend to run that. On a jet bike, on maybe a chariot, a flying chariot. Though, do we say that anymore after the terrible Logan Grimnar model? I don't know, it's just the Egyptian theme coming out in my head, how I would do a jet bike dude. I sort of want to defer to a guy in a chariot. Why did they make Space Wolves have a guy in a chariot? Jesus. So, into Thousand Sons Rites of War. So, the Archean configuration, basically you get Castellax Archea as line troops, as non-compulsory line troops. If you're within 12 inches of any model from the detachment that suffers a perils and is within 12 of a Castellax Archea may choose to inflict wounds on the Castellax Archea from the perils of the warp. Probably better to just allocate it to a tactical marine that you're in a squad with, but situationally good. And you gain line from being within 6 inches of 1,000 Sons Astartes that has the Psycho subtype, which is every 1,000 Sons Astartes, right? Limitations. You've got to select more than one model in the Castellax Archea squads that are selected as troops. Must select at least one Tech Marine squadron. Covenant, sorry. But you're going to be doing that on your Lars Cannon squad, right? Because who doesn't rock a Tech Marine Covenant anymore? And one of your consuls must be a Praevian. Now, this is a bit more limiting now, the Praevian, like they fall in a bit of a weird place, I think. It's nice for adding a model to your Castellax units, your Castellax Archea units. The Castellax Archea are going to be getting line when they're in that unit with the Praevian, because he is himself a model with Thousand Sons and the Psycho subtype. That's what it's called, Psycho subtype. So that's going to be a nice little unit, but yeah, I don't know, it just feels sort of out of place. You never see Praevians anymore. It's after seeing them all the time last edition, or at least I did. I used to love running mine. They're just not as good this edition, I suppose, when it's compared to other things that have got a real boost and they actually got a bit of a negative. Now, Castellax Archea aren't brilliant in this edition. I suppose we'll get onto them when we get onto them. This Rite of War is basically really good if you like Castellax Archea. I don't think they're terrible, but it's just not it's not the best one. Guard of the Crimson King is. So the controlling player may designate up to 6 units. They gain Deep Strike, and when they do Deep Strike, they gain Fear 1 for that turn. Sekmeta Cabals may be selected as troop choices. You must include Magnus the Red, Ahriman, a Legion Praetor, Cataphracti Praetor, Tartarus Praetor, upgraded to have a psychic discipline, and may not be used by an allied detachment. Now, why is your Delegatus not one of the inner rings on that thing that gets organised round Magnus? I don't see the need to always have these Praetor slots. In Iron Warriors, you get one which is a Warsmith only, and it's like, why do my guys not know how to fire bolters as fast? Why is your... Like, I suppose it could be them teleporting in with psychic powers, but why the stipulation of Praetor I just don't like. Now, Fear 1 is really good because you're going to have your Deep Strike. If it's on second turn, say you've got like a Master of Signals, Librarian. Now, that's going to help you Deep Strike more accurately on the second turn with less disruption. With less disruption? No, just more accurately, right? So he's going to do that. You're going to come in and go within 6 of as many enemy units as possible, and you're going to make them test for pinning before they get to do their Overwatch. It's one of the better ways of doing Deep Strike that there is, and it can be any infantry unit that can gain it. It doesn't have to be Sekmet. So I really like this Rite of War. It does rely on Deep Strike, which can be not the greatest in this edition. Now everything has an augury scanner, but it goes some way to mitigate that. And I think there are other things that you can stack into a Thousand Suns list that also help to mitigate the downsides of Deep Strike and maximise this Rite of War. Like the Athenaean rotor cannon squads, which will be that -2 on the first turn. If you go for night fighting, it's -3, and now their key units can't Overwatch. So you can also hallucinate an enemy unit with your Psychers that are already on the board to turn off their reactions, and it all just stacks up to this deep striking effect that doesn't rely on your army having characters that have all their special rules, I suppose, in that instance. But it can be a successful Thousand Suns build, I think. So onto the Armoury, you get Aether Fire Cannons, Asphyx Shells, and Force Weapons. So Aether Fire Cannons can be used by anyone that's got a plasma pistol, basically. Yep, anyone with a plasma weapon can change it for an Aether Fire Cannon. Now these are basically slightly less range, so pistols are 10-inch range, guns are 18-inch range, cannons are 24, Magna cannons are 36. They're strength 6 rather than 7, AP 4, and they're only rending 6. Now, why would you do this, you ask? Well, you've got Acheron Force. So basically, what you do is you do a psychic check, and if it's passed, you gain +2 strength to that weapon strength, so you're now strength 8. Now, this is really useful for doubling out Marines, just for example. So you can hose down those veteran squads and 2-wound squads and get some more wounds. Now, it's a free upgrade, so it's worth trying out to see if you like it. There's 2 sides to come down on this, really, isn't there? The increased breaching, which is on a 4 on 4 on plasma guns, or you can get like rending 6 on this but with strength 8, so doubling out. And do you know what? I don't know which way I like to go. I like things that ignore armor because it just feels more reliable to me. But there are enough people that I speak to that would go with, oh yeah, roll those 2 ups and go for the 1s, that I think they're probably worth it. In the big downside to them is it's another psychic check that you have to take to get your squad special rule. And again, it's gonna start adding up. So at least it doesn't suffer perils of the warp because of Acheron Force as far as I can see, but it's just another reliance on a psychic check. the benefits and negatives of the actual weapon are up in the air. I don't think there's a bad choice, just my personal choice tends to be ignore armor. Asphyx shells. Any model with a bolt pistol or bolter can upgrade it for 1 point a model to an Asphyx bolter or bolt pistol, or an Asphyx bolt cannon. So these are reduced range weapons, much in the same way as Iron Warriors get reduced range shrapnel bolter weapons. The pistol is range 8, the bolter is range 18, and bolt cannon is range 24. The big benefit of these is it gains shred, which I think is actually really excellent. It's only a point per model, which means it's like 20 for a full tactical squad. I think it's a really big benefit. I don't much like the shrapnel bolts because it relies on your opponent failing the saves, and usually the targets you're going to be firing at have a high leadership check. Now, the benefit of Asphyx comes before you get to all of those steps. It's on the wound step, which is always going to be a 4-up against Marines, really. So that then adds an extra 25% to all of the damage that your tactical squads are outputting, which I think is really good. I won't put it on any pistols, really. It's just, is it worth it? Is it worth triggering a shooting reaction against your assault unit just for firing some pistols? I know you can bait out those reactions first, but it just smash them in assault. But on a tactical squad, I'd say it was definitely worth it. Oh, one thing I missed actually on the plasma, sorry for jumping all about. The Aetherfire blasters at range 18 are assault 2 rather than rapid fire. And I do think that's a big benefit. It doesn't really change my thoughts on the weapon overall, but I do think it's a benefit overall to that blaster. So Archea pattern force weapons, essentially, are power weapons but gain Acheron force, which again is +2 strength on a successful psychic check. Now you've got the Force Sword, AP 3, goes to strength 6. It's a no points cost upgrade for any character, so you just always take it, right? And there's no downside to failing the psychic check that you take on your Acheron force. So there's just no real there's no downside to taking them. What would I recommend to take? So Archea Force Axe, strength 7, you still unwieldy. I'd still go for a fist or a thunderhammer just because you've got that option to double out anything with 2 wounds, and a lot of the things with a 2-up save tend to have a 2 wound profile anyway. So I tend to still go for the fist there. However, the real star of this section, I think, is the Archea Force Maul. Now it's +2 strength base, Arcane Force, so +4 strength to strength 8. So you are now doubling out veteran squads. You can go for the same as with the Aetherfire Cannon. You can go for that doubling out and seeing if you can put as many attacks out as possible to make Terminator squads roll 1s. Now, if you were on a Despoiler squad and you've killed the Sergeant in a Terminator, or say you've not, you're on 3 attacks a model, you're getting 2 close combat weapons, so you're on that 3, not on the 2 on the charge. And across an entire squad, or I suppose it's only like 4 in the Despoiler squad, it starts to add up and it adds those strength 8s that can do in vehicles. You can start attempting to put wounds on dreads. I think that's maybe the benefit of the Force Axe, is putting wounds on dreads, but I wouldn't be relying on that. It's a bit of a sacrifice of the unit to... You'll kill a dread with a big Despoiler squad or with an assault squad, but you'll lose a lot of Marines in return. My pick of that one would be the Force Maul. Strength 8 is just excellent. It's like the golden point. You ignore feel no pains, you double out the 2 wounds, and you tend to do a lot of damage with that strength 8. And it's free! It's free! So missing out Magnus the Red, we'll go on to Sekmet Terminators. They're 275 points, and they are not as good as last edition. I'll just break it to you now. So they are always in Cataphracti armor. They've got a combi bolter, arcane pattern, force weapon. They've got weapon skill 5. The rest of it's a Terminator profile. They're heavy psyker. Sekmeta Interceptor, which is the sergeant, is heavy character psyker, so gains a minor arcana. The Legion stat is Thousand Suns, Relentless, Bulky 2, and Stubborn. Now, Stubborn's a really nice rule. Weapon skill 5 is good in this edition. It is a special Terminator squad. Now, you can upgrade to have Power Fist, Lightning Claws, Chain Fist, Thunder Hammers. Thunder Hammers are a bit expensive on the 15 points level. I suppose it's because you're upgrading from a power weapon. But really, as soon as you do that, you're losing out on your force weapon. The big draw of this squad is that you can select a single psychic discipline from the core discipline list for 25 points. So that means you can start putting things like Biomancy on the squad. So when you're shot at, you return fire and Biomance your unit to toughness 5. Now, that kicks in before the damage mitigation and your guy is removed. So if you Biomance your unit on the return fire, gain the toughness 5, you're no longer being doubled out by las cannons. And I think that's a real big benefit to this unit that will be acting independently, operating on its own, or has the potential for operating on its own. In Crimson King, what are you? You can select it as troops. Yeah, just flat troops. And I think it makes this unit good. Now, where I think it falls down, because as I say, it's not as good as last edition, is Archea pattern force weapons aren't the best. Obviously your like AP2 power axes are quite good, but you're not instant deathing people with the force anymore. If you're upgrading to power fists, it really starts racking up in price, and I just think it makes them that bit more of an expensive option. Where if you're going to go for like a Thunderhammer or something, go for a command squad where you're going to have the additional benefits of the banner, line, things like that. Now, you can do like cores of the army with Thunderhammers, but I'd say just to double down on Archea pattern force weapons and try and pick off your opponent's real hard Terminator squad or Death Star with something else, unless you've got someone like Magnus with you. Just to sort of keep points down and not tie into anything else. An additional member is also 50 points, so it really starts to hurt. If you are upgrading them with Fist, it's 60 points. So they're more expensive than, bad example, Dominators, because as everyone keeps telling me, Dominators are really underpriced, but that's a whole different argument. But yeah, I just think they're overpriced for the additional members. The initial squad isn't too bad. I'm a bit resistant, as I say, to putting like different weapons on them, but there's no real reason why you couldn't. It's just me being a bit resistant to it. So the Contemptor Osiron pattern Dreadnought Talon, 200 points, and it's a Dreadnought. Now, it can be part of a Talon of up to 3 Osiron Dreadnoughts, so you're not massively eating into your elite slots, getting these as your choices. It gets another psychic guy into your list, which is really, really good. So it can be selected as a Talon, but if you want to do the thing which is basically the best bit about this Dreadnought, which is to upgrade it to a Psyker with a Psychic Discipline, it's 50 points and can't be in a Talon of more than a single model. And that's really how you're going to take these. The only other benefits, really, of taking this as a Dreadnought is its Adamantium Will 4+. Otherwise, take a normal Dreadnought and it's 35 points cheaper for a normal Dreadnought, and you just lose that Adamantium Will 4. You've got a Gravis Force Blade, which is Strength 9, AP 2, Achaean Force, so it can go to Strength 11, but it's only Brutal 2. Now, that strength 11 can be good versus things which has got battle hardened so that you might need to get to strength 10 to double them out. But in combat, really, fists are the ones to be really scared of, and not fists. He's actually going to help with fists because it's brutal 3 on a normal dreadnought. The Iron Hands are the ones that you're really scared of trying to get to that strength 10, and theirs doesn't work in combat. Sons of Horus, you can just hold the line and deny their first turn benefit of their Legion rule. So it's not that crippling is Sons of Horus benefit, which means you need to get to strength 10. So Arisen Dreadnought Talons, I'd say are really good in the single model. 50 points. You can get that extra switch off of reaction. It means that you can take Biomancy and go to toughness 8, which means strength 4 can't wound you. So it means that Marines can't wound you on basic. Crack grenades never seem, in my experience, to get enough wounds down on a dreadnought to really take it out. So it just cuts down the amount of attacks. It means that if you Biomancy yourself, Melter Guns are only hurting you on 4s, which is, I know it's like the pseudo Iron Hands trait. Melter Guns are only hurting you on 4s. Las Cannons are only hurting you on 3s. So it's a real good benefit, I think. But it does start to add up for that 50 points. So it's up to you. But I think it's really flavourful. I like the unit. Dreadnoughts are probably undercosted anyway. So paying a slight bit of a premium for that, I wouldn't say is too bad. And on to Castellax Archea. Why do I hate them? So 140 points. It's movement 7, weapon skill 3. Weapon skill 3. Weapon skill 3. Ballistic skill 4. Strength 6. Toughness 6. 4 wounds. Initiative 3. 2 attacks. Leadership 8. 3 up save. Now, I said that weapon skill 3 times because it is actually such a big downside, as we know in this edition. Hitting Marines on 5s just doesn't cut it in combat anymore, really. You've got Archea pattern, Force Claws, which I'm looking for. I'm like, why have I not seen this? It's on the next page, isn't it? So they are Strength 6, AP 3, Melee, Rending 5+, Archaean Force. Now you get 2 of these, so you've got 3 attacks base, essentially, from your Castellax. You're going to be kicking out a load of attacks, but only one of those 3 is going to hit, on average. You've got an Aether Fire Cannon, which is the plasma type. That's good. It's quite good, but it's not as good as a Dark Fire Lance, which is AP 2 all the time. So it's sort of just better, because it's a 3-inch blast. Rending 6, you're only really going to get 2 hits on a target unit most of the time with that, and that's if your opponent is spaced out well enough, you're only going to be getting 1 hit unless you scatter luckily onto something else. Now, it's got the Psi Automata rule, and that is models with the Psi Automata that is not within 6 of a Psyker are subject to program behaviour. It's not that bad of a rule, I don't think, program behaviour. During the controlling player's shooting and charge phase, you must attempt to shoot an attack or charge if there is an enemy within range, and must charge the target to the closest enemy possible with that shooting and charge. I don't think that's too terrible. You've just got to move them. If they're going to be out of that 6-inch Psyker range, move them in a way that it's not too much of a downside. A model with the Psyker Automata subtype may fire all their weapons. That's good. May fire heavy ordnance when stationary, as if stationary, which is good. You may still charge after firing those weapons. Ignore penalties to initiative, charging through difficult terrain or dangerous terrain. You're still going behind Marines, but you're going ahead of fists. And when using a psychic weapon to make a shooting attack within 12 inches, a model with the psychic subtype may use the Castellax Archea as the point of origin instead of drawing line of sight or range from themselves. Now, I think that's good. They're nice little benefits, but I just overall don't think the unit stacks up. I don't think it stacks up as a brilliant combat unit because of that weapon skill 3. Even with Rending, it just doesn't put out enough attacks to get through those big units that you really want them to. And I just don't think their shooting is as good as a dark fire cannon, or potentially even just a multi-melter nowadays, because multi-melter are quite good, so I've been told. You're much better off, I think, just taking normal Castellax. And that is why I don't massively like the Castellax Archea Rite of War in Thousand Suns. So Kinatai Occult Cabal, 145 points, with a confusing picture of Terminators on the same page. These are the dual Copis wielding guys that are in power armor. So they've got weapon skill 5, 2 wounds, 2 attacks, leadership 8 base. They've got 2 Archea 4 swords, power armor, frag, crack, bolt, pistol. They've got chosen warriors, so they can all issue and accept challenges, and warriors of the Kinatai. You can get some upgrades. The sergeant can upgrade to artificer armor for an extra premium of 15 points, which is a little bit weird because everyone else is 10, I believe. I'm going to have to check now that I've said that, Anta, because that's something that I should know. It is as well. So getting onto the veteran page, artificer armor 10 points for a veteran sergeant. Why is it 15 points here? I don't know. 1 in 5 models, so not that many, can upgrade to an 8th fire pistol and stuff like that. An additional Kinatai blade is 24 points. Let's get onto their special rules. So you get basically the warriors of the Kinatai. A model with this special rule gains Mind Song of the Blade psychic power and may not select a minor arcana from those present in the Prospering Arcana special rule. Excellent. It takes away that. However, at the start of the controlling player's turn, a psychic power may be made for a unit composing entirely of models with this psychic power, so you can't be joined by a character. If successful, gain +1 to the following characteristics: movement, weapon skill, and attacks. If failed, suffer perils. So, essentially, you're getting 2 attacks base, 1 for charging. You're going to be weapon skill 6, so hitting elite units on 3s even. You're going to be movement 8, so you're going to be getting that +1 to that move, +1 to the charge, which is really good. +1 to your attacks makes 3 base, 2 close combat weapons 4, and charging for 5 potentially. The downside of this is it's 4 swords. They've not got a reliable way to get either that strength 8, it can't be dual 8th of fire mauls, Archea Force mauls, not 8th of fire mauls, sorry. It can't be dual mauls, so it doesn't have that benefit of doubling things out or being AP2. You want one of those, really, I would say. So I would actually argue potentially a veteran squad is better. Despite having less weapon skill, you're going to get 1 less attack. Getting the double out or the AP2, you've got no invulnerable save built into these guys. So I just think they're too fragile for what they do. Yes, you can put them into a raider or something like that, get them there a bit easier, but when they're in combat, they're still only initiative 4, so everyone's striking back. And they're going to start dying to tactical marines or veterans, and they're just going to start getting brought down, and they're a bit of a premium of points. They double the points of a veteran. I could get a veteran with a power axe for the same price, and my remaining veterans with power axes are going to mince through this squad quite easily. No, that's a bad example. Don't believe me on that one. I still favour I favour the veterans, but that was just a bad example. God, this is the video where I'm not doing outtakes as well. So yeah, I still favour the veterans just to be more reliable on getting those axe hits through. Because actually when you start putting an axe squad down in veterans, even with 3 axes, they start doing some real work that just this Occult Cabal just can't output against 2-up save units. And 2-up save unit, it's surprising how many times I've had power swords bounce against a single sergeant. 20 power sword attacks go through, and the sergeant just bounces them all. And it's really annoying. And Amitara Occult Intercession Cabal, 175 points. They are movement 8 because they've got their Recon armor on. They've got 4 up saves and a 5 up, and a ballistic skill of 5. They've all got Nemesis bolters, frag, crack, shroud bomb, scout armor. They're light, psyker, skirmish, and character on the sergeant. They've got scout, infiltrate, move through cover, relentless, shroud 6+. And shroud 6+ is nice, right? Because it's just always on. Like, it's just always on. 175 points. It's 25 points for an additional model. You're selecting your Arcana, so you can select the -1 leadership. And they have Mind Killer. Mind Killer. At the start of their turn, before any models are moved, a psychic check may be made once for each Intercessor Cabal by the controlling player using any model's leadership which does not have independent character. If passed, all models with the Psyche unit subtype get Rending 4 and ignores cover, in addition to other effective weapons they have. So you can fire your bolt pistols and charge with Rending 4+ and ignores cover. However, it's... yeah, it just basically makes your sniper rifles better, is the be-all and end-all of this. It can't be used... it does not replace or improve any other versions of Rending X, and it may not be used when attacking with weapons which have template or blast. So it doesn't replace or improve, but it adds Rending 4+. So then you just select Rending 4+, which is better than Rending 5+. For the for the Nemesis bolters. It's sort of worded weirdly, but that is the way that you tend to do it. It's like with gaining dual feel no pains on some units. The feel no pains don't interact and you can't replace them with them, but you gain them both and then you use the better one. So one of the good things about this is they have Relentless as well, which gets around most scout squads. They fall down a little bit by not having Relentless, so you're losing a turn of movement and precision shots when you reposition, and I think they're really good for that. So yeah, they're good. I like them. I would take them in Thousand Sons armies. They're actually looking back. The Arisen Dreadnought, I like Sekmeta, not as good, but I think still worth taking. And these are also worth taking. So it's not all doom and gloom. I just don't like the I just don't like Archea and Occult Cabal. I know Occult Cabal could potentially shred, but we're talking about shredding medium units rather than really dominating in close combat like you really want a close combat unit to. So you've also got the exemplar units, the Thousand Sons Numerologist Cabal, 130 points. Now this is in the exemplary battles, I believe for December? So yeah, you got that. You can take 0 to 1000 Sons Numerologist Cabal, and basically it's a tech marine in a unit of his own. So it's 1 numerologist and 4 life wards. The life wards are also sort of they're marines with servo arm. No, he's got the servo arm. They're marines with chainswords and bolt pistols. That's it. They basically just stand there doing nothing. He gains Battlesmith 4, Relentless, and life warded. He's got a load of upgrades, but you're never really going to take any. He's basically got all the upgrades for a tech marine. He's got Numerologist Order is really why you're taking this guy. He can't select any other minor arcana and has Numerologist Order. And what that does is essentially gives you a geolocator beacon and also +1 ballistic skill for up to 2 friendly units within 6 inches, any models within 6 inches of the Numerologist. Now, he's 130 points with his squad. Yes, you get some additional wounds, and he's got 2 wounds, but you can almost take 2 tech marines for that +1 ballistic skill on each to just give it to 2 different squads in the form of a Cognis Signum, that +1 ballistic skill. That +1 ballistic skill from normal tech marines will also come with the ignores shrouded part of night fighting that you really want. So that's good on a Tech Marine. And I just don't think he measures up. If you really want that geolocator beacon, take a Master of Signals that is also a librarian. Because that's a really good all-round combo. You're pretty much never going to be disappointed by a Master of Signals who is also a librarian. So it's just insurance worth taking, even if you're not deep striking. You turn on your Vox Disruptor array and have the benefits of basically this numerologist. And you take Tech Marines because Tech Marines are just better at doing that +1 ballistic skill thing than the numerologist is. So it's a nice flavoursome unit. I quite like it. It's almost there, but it's just not quite. And as a competitive choice, I think there are better options in the form of 2 Tech Marines that already exist. Now, it is hard to improve on them, so it's not like a negative on the design team. It's very hard to find a reason for not taking Tech Marines at the moment. And I think it's just that Tech Marines need to come out. I don't think they should have Cognisignums, maybe, because units like this that have their own little special place are getting pushed out by Tech Marines, I think. So, on to the special characters. So, Azek Ahriman, he's 185 points. He's movement 7, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, 3 wounds, initiative 5, 4 attacks, leadership 10, 2 up save. He's got a mastercrafted bolt pistol, yay. Artificer armor, iron halo, frag crack, and the Corvidian scepter. He's character psycho unique, surprise. He's got Adamantium Will 3+, Arch Magister of the Corvidae, Traitor, and Patterns of Fate. His Patterns of Fate Warlord trait means once all models have been deployed, including infiltrators or scouts, but before first turn, may select up to 3 friendly units and redeploy them within the controlling player's deployment zone, or remove them and place them in reserves. You may make an additional reaction in any one phase once per turn, as long as he's not been removed as a casualty. I think that's a really, really good Warlord trait. It allows you to get the drop on the opponent. Having played Alpha Legion a couple of times, it's so annoying when they move their units about, and that's the same thing. They move their units about. You've deployed against one unit, and now they're over here. It's really good, and a reaction in any phase once per turn is so flexible. You don't even have to choose at the start of the turn. You don't go, I'll use it in the movement phase. It's just any one phase. So they can't waste that reaction by not picking the right one. So the Corvidian scepter is +1 strength, AP 2. It's reach 1, force mastercrafted. Now force is good on this. It means that you're gonna be doubling people out with your weapon with reach 1 at initiative 6 because it's reach 1. I think that's really good. No massive downside to that. Is an at initiative doubling out AP2 weapon. What is to hate about that? He's leadership 10. He ain't failing that force check, really. So, no real downsides there. So, as part of the Magister of the Corvidae, he gains Divination and Thaumaturgy. So, let's actually go through these, because it'd be worth actually seeing what he's definitely got. So, Divinatory Aegis, basically, select a single friendly unit within 12. The unit gains Precision Strike 6 and Precision Shot 6. When using this power, may choose to take a psychic check. If passed, gains 5 up for those two, respectively. So that's quite good. It adds that basic. It's really good, isn't it? It's instead of making a shooting attack, so you can also do it at the same time with Diviner Dart, which is Strength 6, AP 2, Assault 1, Sniper, Guided Fire, Psychic Focus, which is also incredibly good. It won't double anyone out, and arguably Divinatory Aegis because it's cast on a full squad, will be much better to use, but I think it's really good. It's an AP2 psychic weapon, and Divinatory Aegis Precision Strikes 5 is really good. The other one is Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy is, instead of making a shooting attack, a Psyker may select a single unit with a model within 12. If passed, or non-vehicle models in the unit rolls a d6. On a 5, regain a single lost wound. There's only going to be a couple of models in a unit. A 5 up to regain a lost wound is nothing to sniff at, right? But it sounds better than it actually works out as. Because there's only going to be that one model, maybe a couple of characters. Yes, your characters are important, but it's not like it's 10 wounds coming back across the unit. If you had a unit of suzerain on your side, then it's really useful having that on. Thaumaturgy's Cleansing, template, strength 4, AP 3, assault 1, sanctic, psychic focus. Always wounds demons on a 2. Psychic focus, got to take test before doing. Now, just reading through them, we all know, don't we, that there's a reason everyone is taking... I've lost it. Telepathy. And because they're not as good as that. However, but having Ahriman as your Praetor with his doubled strength AP2 reach 1 weapon, it will still be incredibly good. On top of the fact that he's got his Warlord trait, he's only 185 points. I would 100% recommend taking Ahriman as a character. So, on to Magister Amon, the sneaky guy. He's 185 points, the same as Ahriman. He's movement 7, weapon skill 6, so better than Azek Ahriman's. Ballistic skill 5, strength toughness 4, 3 wounds, initiative 5, 4 attacks, leadership 10, 2 up save. He's got an Archaeotech pistol, yes. He's got the Reliquary of Dust, the Armour of Shades, an Iron Halo, and a bunch of special rules. He's got the ones that are surprising: Magister of Dust, Infiltrate, Traitor, Lord of Hidden Paths. His Warlord trait: all units in the army with Infiltrate and Scout gain Shrouded 5+ for the first 2 game turns. In addition, may make an additional reaction in the movement phase. So this really leans him into being that Scoutmaster that we had in the last edition. I think it's going to be a really good way of taking the legacy units that I've just forgotten the name of because I've talked since. This is why I couldn't remember it. The Amitara Occult Intercession Cabal. Really good at taking them. Recons as troops in a recon company because he's Master of the Legion, and you're all getting that Shroud 5 without having to use a reaction, and it's really, really good as a force multiplier across as much of your army as you can give it. You can also join those units with his own Infiltrate, and it just all comes together that bit nicely. So the Armour of Shades is a 2 up save. In addition, in a turn which he's moved or is within the bounds of a zone of area terrain, it grants him a Shrouded 4+ special rule. Really good. Keep him in area terrain for that 4 up Iron Halo, 4 up Shrouded. Reliquary of Dust. That strength user, AP2, Poison Floor, Reaping Blow 1, Mastercrafted. May also be used to make a shooting attack once per battle instead of attacking normally with the following profile: Strength 1, Range 6, Assault 2d6, Poison 4, Concussive 3, Rending 6+. He may select Divination and Telepathy, which Telepathy is in there. Divination, he's getting them 5 up precision strikes on units that you want. Diviner's Dart, though really you want to be using the precision strikes, I would say. Concussive can be very useful, but really, that's not why you're bringing him. I think he's a really good character He's really good at buffing your entire army, really allowing you to play that Recon Company playstyle that really doesn't need any buffs this edition, especially when you've got Relentless, Shrouded 5+, Amitara Intercession, Cabal Snipers. I think I got the name right, yes! Small wins at this point. So, on to the Lord of the Thousand Suns, Magnus the Red, the 520 points Primarch. So he's movement 8, weapon skill 7, which is on the low side for Primarch, like the high or low, he's on the low side for Primarchs. Not quite Lorgar though. He's BS 6, strength toughness 6, 6 wounds, initiative 6, attack 6, leadership 10, 2 up save. And the bit that we've all been waiting for, he is not bulky 6 like Fulgrim, which is just hilarious because he is a massive giant. I suppose he could shrink down to being like Pocket Magnus when he's in a Land Raider or something like that. He's got the Horned Raiment, the Blade of Amon Nuntra. He's got the Sci-Fire Serpenta and Frag Grenades. So he's not striking last, charging into cover. Excellent. He's got Sire of the Thousand Suns. He gains Adamantium Will 6+. Or all infantry gain Adamantium Will 6+. Or increases it by 1. Any that suffer Perils of the War reduces the number of wounds by 1. In addition, gains an additional reaction in the assault phase unless he's been removed as a casualty. Now, it's quite good. I would say that Ahriman's and Amon's Warlord traits are actually better. You want something real, not that negates the downs, that like reduces the downsides of you doing badly at psychic checks. Really, it wants to be something that makes your psychic checks better, because that is where this army falls down. He's Arch Sorcerer. He knows all the core disciplines, and when making a shooting attack or attacking during an assault, may choose to use any one psychic weapon available from the psychic discipline, regardless of which psychic powers he is used in a given turn. In addition to any other psychic powers he's used in each turn, Magnus may use any one minor arcana provided by the Prospering Arcana special rule, and may use a different minor arcana each turn. When using a minor arcana, he automatically passes the psychic check without the dice being rolled. So just good all round, because it's those benefits from the minor arcana that I was talking about before, that it falls down on the leadership checks. You're ignoring that for Magnus and for his unit, at least, from his power. The Eye of the Crimson King. When selecting targets for his psychic powers, all models within range are assumed to be in line of sight. So basically, you can't hide behind buildings and stuff. That's actually really good. You can hallucinate things that you can't see, because we all know that's the psychic power people are using all the time. The Horned Raiment provides a 2-up, 4-up. In addition, if he's struck with a destroyer, the number of wounds it inflicts is reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1. Quite good. It's a shame it doesn't do anything about brutal. It's, like a 2-up, 4-up is fairly standard for a Primarch. His Arch Sorcerer at this point is doing him quite well because Biomancy exists, and so does Divination, and he's going to basically be using those at will whenever he wants. His Blade of Amon Nutra is Power, Force, Strength 6, AP 1, two-handed. Now, Force will mean that Strength 6 goes up to Strength 12, which is then doubling out pretty much everything that you want. So it's good for a Primarch weapon, because it's doubling out at initiative. It's very good until you get to the point of Brutal coming in. And every time, I'm bored of saying, you're bored of hearing, I imagine, Brutal is king of Primarch weapons. And the ones that have it are just placed that little bit above everyone else. The Sci-Fi Serpenta is Plasma, Force, Range 15, Strength 3, AP 2, Assault 3, Deflagrate, Force. So potentially Strength 6, AP 2, he's precision shotting people, and so you can just snipe the characters with impunity, especially those pesky apothecaries, right? He's it's really good. Magnus is, I would say, a really good character. Those those minor arcana additions. I know you've got the major arcana that are really good, right? They're all really good. But what those minor arcana, small bonuses that you just get in every turn relentlessly, giving him +3 movement to him and his squad is incredible. Like, and it just going off at will. Like, I'm going to say that one again, especially the +3 movement one for a Primarch, and they are combat weapons. Is just so useful. He's one of the faster Primarchs. So he's not let down by not being able to get about the board, and he can just stampede through everything. Yes, he could use some more attacks like Angron or stuff like that, but he's doubling people out. Yes, he could use Brutal too, but he has his own benefits, and that is the major arcana. So I think he's a really good Primarch. Him along with the rest of the Legion just need a little bit. Oh, he doesn't need a boost. What am I saying? The rest of the Legion just need that little bit of a boost. Russ needs to be taken down a little bit, so they're like 50-50. I know Russ beats him, but it's a hard fight. And that's hard for me to say because I was a Space Wolf player for ages. But yeah, he's just not on the level of those Brutal 2 Primarchs. And I think that is the end of the Thousand Sons Legion and the end of our Heresy Legions guides. Now, I will be carrying on doing these. I've got the Legacy units that I missed out to do. Got Solar Auxilia Legacies to do. Custodes, the rest of the Mechanicum. So there's plenty of content upcoming. I've got all the different basic troops, like how the hell do you use a tactical squad? And I'll try and get some people in to do those with me. I have been trying, but it's very hard with schedules sometimes. If you did like this video, if you like videos of this content and you want to see more, don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe. It really does help out with those YouTube analytics, so I know what you like, and so that I will produce more of them basically by knowing what you want to watch. So do those YouTubey things. And if you really, really liked it down to the core of your being, there is a Patreon link below where you can get yourself a bounty tray. Like I've actually prepared. I use my divination to prepare one close by. You can get yourself a bounty tray as well as access to the Discord where you can call me an idiot directly to my phone. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time in a bit.